Born into Chains, the child called Jacques. Hey everyone, today we're going to dive into the epic story of one of the most ruthless and relentless revolutionaries the world has ever known, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, the man who tore the chains off Haiti and crowned himself emperor over its ashes. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. It might be midnight in Port-au-Prince, or the middle of a sunny afternoon where you are, but wherever and whenever you're tuning in, thanks for being here. Now, let's listen to the compelling story in this video of mine. You shuffle barefoot across the scorched earth of the sugar plantation, the soles of your feet hardened by years of walking over crushed cane and sun-baked soil. You are called Jacques, just Jacques. There is no last name, no heritage you can speak of, just a Creole murmur that you were born somewhere in the north of Saint-Domingue. Maybe 1758, maybe 1755. Birthdays don't matter when you're born into slavery. What matters is how fast you can move, how little you scream, and how well you hide the fire building in your chest. They don't let you keep anything. Not a family name, not a home, not even rest. By the age of 7, you've already seen what happens when someone talks back. The whip doesn't just tear flesh, it silences memory. But you remember anyway. You remember your aunt, raped by an overseer. You remember your brother, too slow to get up one morning, dragged by one leg until he didn't move anymore. You remember. And you carry it. Your master is brutal, even by the already vicious standards of colonial Saint-Domingue. His nickname among the enslaved is Diable Sauteur, the jumping devil, because of how gleefully he dances as the lash cuts. He is a Frenchman with fine boots, a red coat, and no soul. But you aren't one to break easy. There's a look in your eye that makes even grown men step aside. You get beaten often, and still, you don't flinch. Eventually, they ship you off, sold like livestock, to another plantation in Grande Rivière. It's meant to be a punishment. Instead, it becomes your making. There, a maroon cook named Fatima whispers stories to you between stirring pots. She says you have the spirit of Ogun, the warrior god. She's the first to call you something new, Jean-Jacques. Not just Jacques anymore. A name is power, and she tells you something else. One day, fire will eat the white sugar cane. You don't understand it yet, but you listen. As a teenager, your body grows massive. Years of lifting barrels, dragging sacks, and pushing carts give you the build of a soldier. Shoulders like granite, arms like steel ropes. You start to notice how the overseers flinch when you walk by. Maybe they see it in your eyes, how you're not broken, just waiting. Then something happens. 1791. A whisper spreads across the night. An uprising has started in the north. Machetes flash, torches roar, and plantations burn. The wind smells like smoke and blood. A revolution is blooming. You're in your early 30s now, and you've been waiting for this fire since childhood. The rebellion isn't organized yet, but it's fierce. The enslaved rise like a tidal wave. You find a blade. No, not a soldier's weapon yet, just a sugarcane knife. But it's enough. The first time you strike, it's clumsy. Your hands tremble. But the second time, it's easier. By the third, you're calm. You lead others, not with speeches, but with boldness. You take the fight to the edge of the fields. You find yourself under the command of leaders, Biassou, Jeannot, Boukman, and then, eventually, Toussaint Louverture. Toussaint is different, strategic, educated. He wants a republic. He believes in laws, in order. You admire him, but you also know you are not the same. You are not a philosopher. You are a weapon. Still, under his command, you learn how to maneuver troops, how to raid, how to retreat and strike again. You rise fast. The French notice. They call you dangerous, ruthless, perfect. But right now, you're still one of many. You haven't yet become the Dessalines whose name will make white settlers wake up drenched in sweat. That will come later. For now, you're just Jean-Jacques, the boy who saw fire in the sugarcane and never looked away. The first time you see a French officer beg for his life, something shifts in you. Not joy, not pity, just certainty. We will never be free until they fear us as we have feared them. You begin carving that belief into history, one battlefield at a time. Fire in the cane fields, the rebellion ignites. You wake before the roosters, drenched in sweat, but this time it's not from fear, it's from purpose. You grip the machete you stole last night. It was meant for harvesting cane, but now it's something holier. Something meant to cut through centuries of chains. It's 1791, and all across the northern plains of Saint-Domingue, the enslaved have risen. You're not alone. That's what shakes you to the core. You've waited your whole life thinking maybe, just maybe, you were the only one burning inside. But no, tens of thousands have felt the same. And now the island feels it too. Flames lick the sky above the cane fields. The crops the colonists used to build their empire now betray them, turning the horizon into a smoking hell. You're there as it begins. At Bois Caiman, where Vodou drums beat like war calls and oaths are made with blood and rum. You don't speak much, but you hear everything. You're not yet a commander, but you're already a soldier of vengeance. The first attacks are chaos. Sugar mills, slave quarters, overseer cabins, all torched. The French settlers who once ruled with impunity now leap from balconies, their silk nightgowns in flames. The sky is red at night, and not because of sunsets. Saint-Domingue is changing, one fire at a time. You join a unit led by Georges Biassou, a fierce, unpredictable warrior who believes violence is not a tool but a language, and he speaks it fluently. Under his command, you learn how to raid plantations, set up ambushes, and rally men who have never held weapons before. You move like ghosts through the mangroves and forests, striking and vanishing. The French fight back, of course. But they're used to conventional wars, not guerrilla rage. Their redcoats march in straight lines. You run circles around them. You don't need cannonballs. You have machetes, torches, and hatred hot enough to boil oceans. Then comes the offer. The Spanish, who control the eastern half of the island, see a chance to weaken France. They offer arms, uniforms, even rank, for rebels willing to turn the revolution into a war. You don't hesitate. You trade rags for muskets and keep your machete close. You become part of something larger than rebellion. You become an army. And with that army, you take towns, cities, outposts. You watch French banners fall and Spanish ones rise. You fight side by side with men who were once whipped beside you and now hold command over others. You learn their names, Jean-François, Jeannot, and of course, Toussaint Louverture. Toussaint is quiet, calculating, always reading, always thinking 2 moves ahead. You respect him, but you don't fear him. Not yet. In the lowlands of Artibonite, you win your first major battle. You flank a French patrol in the rain, the mud sucking at your boots, and lead a charge that leaves a dozen colonial soldiers dead before they can raise their rifles. It's not glory that fills your chest, it's certainty. You were born to do this. Stories spread. The French call you a brute. The rebels call you indestructible. And the enslaved, those still waiting behind fences and chains, they whisper your name at night like a prayer. But make no mistake, this war is not noble. It is savage. Atrocities come from both sides. Jeannot, one of your fellow rebel leaders, delights in cruelty, nailing prisoners' heads to posts and laughing as they die. Even you feel sick around him. You begin to understand that revolution isn't clean. It's a storm, and no one walks through it without blood on their hands. Eventually, Toussaint takes command of the rebel forces. He's fought for the Spanish too, but now he sees the tide turning. The French Republic abolishes slavery in 1794. It's a gamble. France is losing its most profitable colony and hoping it buys loyalty from rebels like you. Toussaint accepts. You do too, reluctantly. The Spanish are now the enemy, and the revolution shifts again. You turn your guns and machetes on the very people who armed you. That's how fast alliances move on this island. Truth bends like palm trees in a hurricane. You follow Toussaint because he wins, and because he sees something in you. He gives you command of a regiment and tells you to take a fortress near Léogane. You do it in 2 days. No mercy. No hesitation. Just smoke, ash, and silence. Back in Port-au-Prince, you enter the city as a conqueror. Not through a secret path or by night, but through the front gate. The people cheer. Some cry. A French general, pale and shaking, hands you a sword in surrender. You don't even take it. You have your own. And yet, amidst the victories, the fires, and the bodies, a question begins to form inside you. If the French can betray once, what's stopping them from doing it again? You start keeping notes, watching, counting who among the revolutionaries still trusts the tricolor flag of France too much. You love Toussaint, but you wonder, does he dream of equality or only control? You go back into the hills that night and light a torch by yourself. You look out over a valley filled with cane. You remember being 5 years old and nearly crushed under a cart of it. You take the torch, and you throw it. The cane ignites in an instant. It roars like it remembers everything too. From soldier to general, rising through the ranks. You no longer move through the night like a hunted man. Now you march at the head of columns, boots thudding in rhythm, saber at your side, men shouting your name not in fear, but in faith. You are no longer Jacques, the field slave. You are Dessalines, the general. It didn't happen overnight. Every drop of blood spilled, every betrayal survived, every command followed and given. It all built toward this. You earned it not by noble birth, but by fire. The French, the Spanish, the rebels, none of them handed you anything. You carved your place in history with a blade and a stare that could freeze a volcano. Toussaint saw it. You remember the day he rode up the hill where your men were camped. He dismounted, handed you a folded piece of paper. It was a field commission. General de Brigade. He said nothing more. You nodded. That was enough. Now you lead hundreds, sometimes thousands. You're not just a symbol. You are a force. You know how to stretch rations when food runs out, how to command silence in ambush, how to fire a flintlock with one hand while giving orders with the other. You earn a reputation for discipline, brutality, and unshakable resolve. But war is not just weapons and tactics. It's decisions. Hard ones. There was that time in Les Cais. An ambush went wrong, and 20 of your men were captured by French forces. The enemy sent you a message: surrender the town, or they'd execute the prisoners. You sent a message back: do it, then run. They did. You hunted them down anyway. Your men feared you after that, but they followed you more closely. You weren't their friend. You were their shield. Under Toussaint, the revolution gains ground. Town by town, coast by coast. You help retake Cap Francais, drive out the Spanish from the east, and enforce the Republic's laws with cold precision. You're sent to crush dissenters. Black, white, mulatto, it doesn't matter. If they stand in the way, you break them. And still, something gnaws at you. Toussaint is brilliant, yes, but soft. He speaks of working with the French, of compromise, of order. You nod in the meetings, but inside, your blood boils. Because while Toussaint dreams of peace, you remember the brand on your chest, the one they burned into you when you were a boy. You remember the screams of women in the cane fields, the starvation rations, the lash. You don't want coexistence. You want justice. You want reckoning. Then Napoleon Bonaparte makes his move. It's 1802. France has a new emperor and no interest in keeping promises made to black revolutionaries. Napoleon sends his brother-in-law, Charles Leclerc, with an armada to retake Saint-Domingue. It's not peace, it's reconquest. The French want the sugar, the wealth, the land, and they want slavery back. They land with over 20,000 troops, uniforms clean, cannons polished, orders sealed. But they've never fought anyone like you. At Fort Crête-à-Pierrot, you make your stand. It's not a fortress, it's a stubborn cluster of walls and determination, and you turn it into a tomb. The French surround it for weeks, pouring in shot and shell, but you don't break. You fight off wave after wave, bodies piling at the gates. You have no food. You eat horses, rats, and boiled leather. Still, you do not surrender. When your men begin to falter, you pull out your saber and slash open your own arm. I would rather bleed every drop than return to chains, you roar. They hold the line. Finally, under cover of night, you slip out through the enemy lines, wounded, starving, triumphant. Word of your defiance spreads like wildfire. Even the French speak your name with awe. Leclerc calls you a savage Caesar. You smile at that, but tragedy follows. Toussaint is captured under a false truce. The French trick him into talks, then seize him and ship him to France, where he dies in a freezing prison cell. You hear of it months later, and something inside you hardens beyond steel. The dream of working with the French dies with him. Now the revolution is truly yours. You take command of the remaining forces. You rally former enemies, unite splintered factions, and unleash a campaign of pure resistance. You no longer just fight battles. You fight a war of extermination. You order the destruction of plantations, bridges, crops, anything that might help the French. You want them to choke on the very ground they seek to claim. Your enemies call it scorched earth. You call it justice. You also call for loyalty. Those who waver, whether black, mulatto, or white, you deal with swiftly. The revolution can't afford hesitation. Not when your people's freedom hangs by a thread woven from blood. Still, you're not all fire. There are moments of strategy so precise, even your enemies admire you. You feint retreats to bait the French into the jungle, then strike with ambushes that erase whole columns. You capture French forts with only half the men they expect because you know terrain like it's tattooed on your skin. And then you begin to win. French troops fall to yellow fever by the thousands. Their supply lines collapse. Local support dries up. Napoleon, enraged and distracted by wars in Europe, pulls back. You see the moment, like a general sees the gap in the enemy's flank, and you charge. But even as you rise in victory, you feel the fractures beginning to form. Among your own ranks, whispers stir. Some say you are too brutal. Others fear your ambition. Some, especially among the free people of color, the gens de couleur, begin to see you not as a liberator, but as a threat to their fragile privileges. You don't care. Not yet. Not while the French still breathe your air. You sharpen your blade, gather your men, and point toward the last French strongholds. If they thought Saint-Domingue would return to chains, they clearly never met you. For the French gamble, playing sides with Leclerc. You stare across the table at Charles Leclerc, Napoleon's brother-in-law, a man powdered, perfumed, and pretending to negotiate. He's come with velvet gloves and velvet lies. You can smell it. Still, you're here. You don't show your cards, not yet, because sometimes to finish the war, you have to play the game. It's 1802, and Saint-Domingue is bleeding from every corner. Toussaint is gone, tricked, captured, imprisoned. The French have lost thousands, mostly to yellow fever, and the rest to your steel and strategy. And yet, they keep coming. Leclerc wants to bargain now, sensing that full conquest may be slipping through his fingers like Caribbean sand. You've already buried too many good men. You can't afford to be stubborn for stubborn's sake. So you make a move that surprises everyone. You talk peace, or at least pretend to. Leclerc offers terms. He says slavery will not be restored, that former rebels can be officers in the French army, that Saint-Domingue can remain part of France with its freedoms. He wants you to lay down your sword to rejoin the empire. You nod slowly. You take the commission he offers. General in the French army. Fancy uniform, rank, pay. You even march with them, briefly. You wear the tricolor for now. But inside you're watching, listening, waiting. Because you know Napoleon. You've read enough of the reports, spoken to enough sailors. This isn't peace. It's a lull. A fake smile before the whip returns. The French aren't here to share. They're here to take. And when they've buried enough rebels and burned enough villages, they'll bring back the chains. So you test the waters. You send messages to rebel leaders still in the mountains, Christophe, Pétion, Giffard, telling them not to trust the French, to hold their ground. You begin to stockpile weapons behind the army's back. You wait for them to blink. And then they do. The betrayal comes in the form of iron chains and cargo holds. Across the island, black officers are called to French headquarters under the pretense of review or inspection. And they vanish, shackled, deported, executed. No charges, no trials. That's when you snap the mask in half. You rip off the French uniform and hoist a black flag over your camp. It has no emblem, no color, just black, like the soil you bled on, like the ash of burned plantations, like the skin of the people you vowed to free. You declare war not just on the French army, but on France itself. Your first act of vengeance comes swift and sharp. You take a detachment of French troops stationed near Saint-Marc by surprise. Before sunrise, they're gone, either dead or marching back wounded, barefoot and humiliated. Leclerc panics. He calls you a traitor. You laugh. How can a man betray a government that betrayed freedom? It becomes war again, but this time it's different. Now you're not just defending Saint-Domingue. Now you're hunting. The French are weaker now. Disease eats them alive. Local support dries up like spilled rum in the sand. Every man and woman on the island knows someone who's vanished, chained, or murdered. They rally to you, not just with hope, but with rage. You order the countryside cleared. You command hit-and-run raids, poisoned wells, scorched earth tactics. If the French want the land, you make it bleed in their hands. You take no prisoners from Leclerc's European regiments. Your logic is brutal. They came to enslave. They die here. But there's a complexity you can't ignore. Many of the soldiers sent to fight you are black themselves, conscripted from Africa or other colonies, promised rights that will never come. You begin issuing declarations, urging them to desert. Some do. Others are too afraid. But your words travel faster than bullets. Then Leclerc dies. Yellow fever claims him before you can. His replacement, Rochambeau, is worse. Cruel, desperate, and willing to drown Haiti in blood just to break the revolution. You meet him in battle near Vertières in late 1803. The sky is gray, the cannons roar, and your troops charge under storm clouds and fury. You lead them personally, sword raised, shouting above the thunder, "Remember Toussaint, remember the fields." Your men scream back, and for a moment, the whole world shakes. That night, Rochambeau sends envoys under white flags. He offers surrender. You grant him safe passage off the island, with one condition: he never returns. And just like that, it's over. Not just the battle, not just the war. The French are gone, for good. You walk the scorched coastline and stare out at the sea, knowing the revolution, your revolution, is won. The chains have been shattered, the empire defeated. And you? You are the man who broke it. But in your heart, you know the war is not truly over. Not yet. Not until you make sure the French never dare dream of return. Not until you burn their memory out of the soil itself. And that's the fire still growing in your eyes. 5. The blood pact. Break from Toussaint's shadow. The French are gone. The smoke has cleared. But now you're surrounded by silence too loud to ignore. The revolution has no master anymore. Toussaint is dead. Christophe rules the north. Pétion whispers in salons. And you, Dessalines, the blade of vengeance, you're still burning. But there's something else now. A shadow. Not the French. Not their ships or whips or flags. It's Toussaint. His legacy clings to everything. People still call him the father of the nation, even though he died in chains far from this island. They sing his praises in the streets. They speak of his diplomacy, his order, his dreams of a black and white brotherhood. His memory hangs over you like judgment, and it gnaws at you. Because while he negotiated with France, you were bleeding in the mud. While he wrote letters to Paris, you were burning their ports. You loved him once, respected him. But now he is a ghost you need to banish. You start with the truth, or rather your version of it. In speeches, you remind people, Toussaint may have fought for freedom, but he left slavery's gate open. He trusted Napoleon. You didn't. He begged the French for recognition. You crushed the French. If Haiti is free, it's not because of his pen, it's because of your sword. Then you do something bolder. You remove Toussaint's name from official proclamations. Statues of him? You leave them standing, for now, but you have them watched. You surround yourself not with his old loyalists, but with new generals, men forged in your image, decisive, ruthless, unsentimental. One night, you meet with Henri Christophe, your closest rival and Toussaint's old protégé. You drink rum in silence before Christophe leans forward and says, "You want to rule like a god, not a man." You smile. And what did Toussaint rule like? A ghost in chains? The break is clear. You're no longer part of his dream. You're building your own, and it has no room for France, mercy, or compromise. To symbolize that break, you do something unthinkable. You take the French flag, blue, white, and red, and tear the white from it. You tell the people, "We've cut out the white." You stitch the red and blue back together and raise it over the capital. A new flag for a new world. You start drafting a constitution. But yours won't be full of vague promises and French principles. No, your document is fire and iron. It says what others fear to whisper. Haiti is black. Haiti is free. Haiti is ours. And then you announce it, a new government. Not a republic, not a colony, an empire. Your empire. On September 2nd, 1804, you summon your council. In a hall still reeking of blood and incense, you have yourself crowned as Jacques I, Emperor of Haiti. The ceremony mimics Napoleon's, but where his crown came from Rome, yours rises from rebellion. You don't place it on your own head like he did. You have it placed upon you, by soldiers, by survivors, by history itself. And in that moment, the revolution becomes something else. No longer a war. Now it's law. It's hierarchy. It's rule. You ride through the streets in imperial robes, crowds cheering, drums pounding. You hold your saber high, and the people cry your name. Not Jean-Jacques, not General, not even Dessalines. They cry, "Vive l'Empereur!" Still, in the corners of the empire, the murmurs begin. Some of the free blacks, especially the gens de couleur, start to grow nervous. They say you're becoming what you once fought, that you're too harsh, too unforgiving, that your hatred for the French is turning inward. You hear them. You don't care, because you remember being whipped until your back bled just for looking at a white man wrong. You remember the sugar fields, the broken ribs, the hunger. And you swore long ago that if you ever had power, you'd never let those ghosts return. You pass laws. No Frenchman shall own land. No Frenchman shall live in Haiti without special permission. And even that permission, only temporary. You redistribute seized lands to former soldiers. You declare that all Haitians, regardless of skin tone, must work, must contribute, must rebuild. You walk through the fields yourself in boots and a sash, barking orders, inspecting ditches, demanding loyalty. Your generals grumble, but obey. But you also make enemies. Alexandre Pétion watches you with quiet resentment. Christophe smiles too little these days. Even your closest advisors begin to exchange glances behind your back. Still, you press on. Because the revolution isn't finished. Not yet. Not until the last trace of France is wiped away. Not until the fields grow without chains and the children speak freedom as their first language. You stand one night atop the cliffs above Cap Haïtien, your imperial cloak flapping in the salt wind. You think of Toussaint, dead in France, of the French ships fleeing, of the cane fields silent, and you whisper into the dark, "Let them fear us if they will not love us." You walk back to the palace. The crown weighs heavy on your head, but not heavier than the memory of slavery, scorched earth turning the island into a graveyard. You ride at the front, sword drawn, flames behind you. The wind is thick with smoke and gunpowder. The scent of burning sugar and spilled blood clings to your uniform like war paint. You're not just marching, you're cleansing. This isn't Reconstruction. This is reckoning. It is 1804. Haiti is free, but not safe. You don't trust treaties. You don't believe in half measures. You don't think in speeches or slogans. You think in fire and soil. If the French return, it will be because you left something standing that they could recognize. You aim to destroy every reminder of their dominion. So you begin your campaign, not against an army, but against a legacy. You order your generals, burn the plantations, flood the mills, poison the wells left behind by the French elite. No stone is sacred, no estate too grand. Even the few French landowners who claim loyalty to the new empire, gone. You give them a choice, leave or be buried in the once enslaved. You ride with your men through Léoguen, Jacmel, Petit-Goâve. Once elegant towns, now blackened skeletons. No quarter is given. You find plantation owners hiding behind hastily written proclamations of loyalty. You hang them from their own verandas. And when some in your ranks hesitate, when they ask whether this vengeance is too much, you remind them. You point to the scars on your back. You open your palm and show them the deep ridge where a white overseer once split your flesh for dropping a bundle of cane. This, you growl, is why we cannot let the roots live. It works. Your soldiers press forward with ruthless efficiency. The island bleeds white influence from every wound. But vengeance isn't your only motive. There's method to your madness. You know the French still watch, from Martinique, from Guadeloupe, from Europe. They wait to see whether Haiti stumbles. You want to send a message so loud it crosses the Atlantic. If you come back, you'll find nothing to conquer. You also know the danger from within. Gens de couleur, free people of mixed race, still own land, still hold wealth, and some still mourn the French order that once favored them over blacks. You suspect they plot in salons and courtyards, so you push them too. You create new policies. Wealth must serve the empire. Land must be worked. Everyone contributes, or they leave. The idle are taxed. The hesitant are demoted. Even your own officers are not safe. One wrong move, and they vanish into the countryside, never to be seen again. Your empire is a field of discipline and fear. You make no apologies. Haiti was born in a furnace. Why should peace be any different? One day, you visit a school being built in the countryside. A child stares at you, wide-eyed, not out of fear, but awe. He whispers to his friend, "That's the man who made the whites run." You smile, just a little. You are building something that has never existed before. A black-lead empire, carved from slavery's corpse. Not a colony, not a vassal, not a republic bound by European laws, but something new, something unshackled. But you pay for every inch of it. You don't sleep well anymore. You see the faces of the dead, friends and foes alike. You hear the screams at night, even when there are none. You begin to wear heavier coats, even in the heat, not for style, for armor. You never know who's waiting in the shadows. Some of your closest allies have grown quiet, too quiet. Henri Christophe stops sending regular reports. Pétion avoids your invitations to Port-au-Prince. Rumors reach you that your name is cursed in certain circles, not just feared, hated. But what do they expect? That revolution would end with peace treaties and tea parties? That you could erase centuries of brutality with handshakes? No. This is how nations are born, in blood and ashes. You stand over a valley once dotted with white-owned estates. Now it's a field of charred wood and black soil. In the distance, workers begin digging irrigation canals under the command of your engineers. They are black. They are free, and they bend their backs not from fear, but from duty. You nod. Then you ride back toward the capital, toward your palace. You pass through villages, and people kneel in silence as you pass. Some hold up babies. Some avert their eyes. All of them know, this man does not forget. This man does not forgive. Later that evening, you dine alone. A thick journal lies open beside you. You're writing something new, a decree, a warning to Europe, a statement to history. You dip your quill in ink and scrawl the words, "No colonist shall own an inch of Haiti, ever, and if they return, we will bury them in it." This is not cruelty, you tell yourself. This is the price of never being chained again, Sevenac first, crowned in the wake of fire. The sun hangs hot and merciless over Port-au-Prince, but you stand unmoved. You're draped in gold-stitched robes, a saber at your waist, your back straight beneath the weight of a new title. Around you, courtiers, soldiers, generals, and villagers fill the square. No cannon fires, no church bells ring, but still, history thunders in the silence. You are no longer General Dessalines. You are Jacques First, Emperor of Haiti. It's January 1st, 1804. The crowd hears your voice before they see your face. You stand before the people, not as their equal, but as the final edge of the revolution's sword. Your proclamation is short and brutal in clarity. We are free. We are sovereign. We are black. The empire you declare today isn't like Europe's, and it certainly isn't a continuation of France's infected legacy. No, this is something ferocious, something unrepentant. You are not a servant to reason or compromise. You are vengeance in the flesh, a crown raised from scorched sugarcane and shattered chains. Your coronation is stark, military, full of pageantry pulled from both African tradition and Napoleonic mimicry. You wear medals, self-made. You ride a white horse through the streets where French officers once marched in powdered wigs and mock dignity. Now, those same avenues shake under the boots of men who were born in bondage, but now carry rifles with your crest stamped into the iron. People cheer. Some cry, some kneel. Others just stare, unsure if what they're witnessing is salvation or terror. You see both in their eyes. That's fine, because for you, the empire is not vanity, it's armor. Haiti's freedom must be unbreakable. Republics can fracture, be subverted, bought, but an empire, forged from the bones of slavery, can hold. That's your theory, and you are determined to test it. You draft the 1805 Constitution, more radical than anything the Western Hemisphere has seen. It abolishes slavery permanently. It declares that all citizens of Haiti are black, regardless of their skin color. Not to erase identity, but to bind the nation under a single, unbreakable banner. French, white, elite, these are foreign categories. Here, everyone is forged anew. You command land redistribution. Estates seized from the French are carved up, given to veterans of the Revolution. Your officers become landowners, stewards of the soil they once harvested under duress. It's not a perfect system. Some hoard, some abuse, but it's yours. You surround yourself with a new nobility, not born, but chosen. Generals become dukes. Soldiers become barons. Your court is a mirror held up to Europe, but cracked through with rage and irony. Titles mean less than loyalty. Still, some whisper, "Emperor? Isn't that what we just escaped?" But you silence dissent with presence alone. You don't rant, you don't plead. You call your critics in for a meeting, let them speak, and then dismiss them with a look so cold it freezes ambition in their throats. Because you know the truth. You were crowned not for peace, but to guard the revolution with a sword always half drawn. Your rule is relentless. You ride through the countryside with your elite guards, inspecting crops, punishing corruption. If a tax collector skims too much, he disappears. If a village resists orders, its chief is replaced before the sun sets. And yet, you're not without generosity. You forgive some who fought for the French, provided they bend the knee. You support schools, promote literacy, build roads. You push for national industry, dreaming of a Haiti not just free, but independent in every sense. Still, your empire is built on ash, and some fires haven't gone out. In the north, Henri Christophe maintains a growing power base. He obeys you for now, but his letters grow more formal, less familiar. In the south, Alexandre Pétion gathers influence among the mulatto elite. They flatter you in public, but you know the knife behind every bow. Even within your court, there are fractures. Some of your generals think the empire should expand to take Saint-Domingue, maybe even sail for Jamaica. Others think you've gone too far, too fast, too fiercely. You ignore them. You press forward, because you're not just building a government, you're building memory. You order paintings of the revolution's great battles hung in palaces. You commission ballads about Vertières, about Crête-à-Pierrot. You enshrine the names of fallen warriors in monuments, and you make sure every child learns who freed them. Not just Toussaint, not Christophe. You begin speaking in the third person, even in private. The emperor does not negotiate. The emperor commands. You don't see it as arrogance. You see it as protection. You are not a man anymore. You are a symbol. And symbols don't bleed. At night, though, when the palace grows quiet and the torches flicker low, you sit alone. You reread the letters you once wrote in secret to your officers during the darkest days of the war. Letters scrawled in haste, full of desperation and fire. You never sent most of them. You didn't need to, because they weren't for them. They were for you, to remind you of who you were, of what you endured. You tuck them away again. Tomorrow you'll ride to Cap Haïtien, where Christophe is hosting a feast in your honor. You will smile, toast, watch, and weigh the air for treason. You are emperor now, but every crown comes with a blade beneath it. The 1804 massacre. We have no French left. The orders go out in silence. No fanfare, no banners, no proclamations, just sealed instructions handed from hand to hand. Trusted generals, loyal captains, men who know what they're being asked to do even before they break the wax. There is no confusion, only confirmation. It is early 1804. The empire has been born, but its shadow stretches backward. You know what the French are capable of. You saw it, lived it. Every scar on your body, every grave dug by your comrades, every woman dragged screaming into cane fields, they are reminders. They are reasons. So when the French survivors, those few colonists who hadn't fled, who remained behind and begged for mercy, start whispering about the possibility of reconquest, your mind is already made up. You decide there must be a reckoning. Not with rage, but with resolve. It begins in the West. The town of Gonaives sees the first wave. French settlers are pulled from their homes in the early morning hours. Some are former plantation owners. Some are merchants. Others simply bystanders who happen to be born into whiteness in a black nation. Your men line them up in the square. There are no trials. There are no speeches. Only silence until the gunshots start. Word spreads fast, but so do your soldiers. Town after town, Saint-Marc, Léogane, Lecaille. The pattern is the same. French men, especially those who once held power, are executed. You issue strict orders, no harm to women or children. This is not revenge against innocents. This is a purge of a potential threat, a preemptive strike against a second slavery. Still, the line between necessity and cruelty begins to blur. In Cap Haïtien, some of your officers hesitate. They've known some of these people for years, fought beside them, broke bread together after the final French surrender. They send you letters begging for clemency, suggesting deportation instead. You send a message back. If you must hesitate to destroy the enemy, then you are still his servant. They comply. There are stories of men begging for their lives in broken Creole, swearing they supported the revolution, presenting receipts of donations to your army. It doesn't matter. The orders are absolute. Because in your eyes, if you let even one root remain, the tree will grow back. And this time, the harvest will be your people's souls. In the South, the massacres become more visible. Some rebel officers, perhaps too eager, allow chaos to consume their orders. Riots break out. Some women are harmed, children caught in the crossfire. You're informed and you're furious. You send replacements, execute those who disobeyed your command, and reassert the original instructions. But by now, the world is watching. In Europe, newspapers scream, "Black Emperor murders thousands." They don't mention the genocide that preceded it. The centuries of slavery, the mass drownings in Cap Français, the torture chambers of colonial Saint-Domingue. No, they only see your response, not the reasons behind it. And back home, Even your allies begin to shift in their seats. Christophe does not speak against you, but he grows colder in your councils. Pétion starts hosting more private gatherings in the south, his words honeyed, his smile too smooth. Some generals begin asking questions behind closed doors. What separates us from our oppressors now? You answer without blinking. Freedom does. They enslave to conquer. We kill to survive. You don't celebrate the blood, but you don't deny it either, because you've been at war your whole life, first as property, then as soldier, then as general, now as emperor. And every stage has required blood. You think of Sparta, of Rome, of every empire that ever rose from violence. And you wonder, were their founders questioned for it, or only us because we are black? By May, it is done. The last of the French survivors are either gone or buried. Some fled to Louisiana, others to Cuba, a few to France. Their ghosts remain, but their hands are cut off. A messenger comes one night as you pace the courtyard of your palace. He bows low and says simply, "We have no French left." You nod. There is no victory in your eyes, just gravity. The massacre is not something you write songs about. It's not painted in murals or stitched into the flags. It becomes a silence in Haitian history, spoken of in whispers, debated behind closed doors. But to you, it was the final battle of the revolution. The sword has been sheathed, the empire secured. And yet, in your heart, you know, the world will never forgive you for it. Not the whites in Europe. Not even some of your own people. But you didn't rise to be loved. You rose so that the child born in a cane field today will never be born in chains again. And if the world wants to call that monstrous, let them. Let them. The empire fractures, enemies in every shadow. The streets of Port-au-Prince are calm, but you know better. Calm is just the mask fear wears before it strikes. And fear is everywhere now, not fear of the French. That part's done. This fear is quieter, smarter. It smiles to your face in the halls of your palace and poisons your name in drawing rooms by candlelight. It moves behind velvet curtains and inside whispers, too low for soldiers to hear, but loud enough to stir rebellion in polished boots. You stand alone more often now, not because you prefer it, because trust is too expensive. Henri Christophe has grown distant. You see it in his posture, the way he no longer bows quite as deeply, the way his letters come unsigned. He rules the North like a king in waiting, fortifying towns, training soldiers, building mansions with cannons at their gates. He still calls you His Imperial Majesty. In public, but behind closed doors? You've heard the whispers. Dessalines is not a unifier. He is a sword with no sheath. Then there's Alexandre Pétion, smooth as glass, clever as snakes. He mingles with the mulatto elite in the South, promising moderation, promising vision. He speaks of constitutional order, of stability and balance, words that sound like peace but taste like betrayal. You know what's happening. The revolution didn't end. It just changed its costume. Now the battles aren't fought in the fields, but in salons. Now the enemy wears silks instead of sabers. And you're still fighting, but the battlefield has no maps. Some call you paranoid. Some say the power has changed you. But you haven't changed. You've always been this. You just no longer have French troops to focus on, so now your enemies wear familiar faces. And they're growing bolder. Your orders are questioned more openly. A shipment of grain meant for northern provinces never arrives. A military convoy is ambushed, and no one seems to know who gave away the route. One of your trusted advisors is found dead. The official report says fever, but you see the mark on his neck. That was no fever. So you act. You summon the council. A storm of generals, ministers, and advisors, all dressed in pomp and fear. You slam your fist on the table, voice rising like thunder. This empire was built in fire. I will not let it rot in whispers. Silence. Then Christophe speaks. Calm, careful. Perhaps it is time to loosen the grip, Majesty. People grow restless when they cannot breathe. You stare him down. Let them grow strong lungs. Pétion doesn't speak. He just studies you, like a man sizing up a statue, deciding where best to chisel. You walk out of the meeting more resolved than ever. If they want to plot, let them. But you will not be undone by politics. You came from the fields, the flames, the battlefield. You survived chains, bullets, betrayal. You didn't escape one empire just to be dismantled by men in powdered wigs. You increase surveillance. You move loyal regiments closer to the capital. You start reshuffling ranks, promoting the young, the loyal, the fire-hearted. You begin working at night, sleeping in different quarters each week, always a step ahead of the dagger you can't see but know is coming. One evening, an officer brings you word. Pétion is meeting privately with known opponents of your land reforms. The next day, a mulatto merchant is arrested with letters outlining a transition council for a post-Dessalines government. You confront Pétion directly. He denies everything, smiles like nothing's wrong. So you press harder, more arrests, more interrogations. You issue a proclamation, stern, public, unforgettable. Any man who threatens the unity of this empire threatens the freedom of every Haitian alive. Let no one forget the soil we buried France in. But people do forget, not the fire, not the freedom, but the fear that kept them loyal, because peace has begun to soften their edges. They forget what it felt like to live under chains. Now they crave other things: order, comfort, control. You're a symbol of revolution. But the nation, it seems, wants routine. And worse, your image begins to change. The stories start, some half true, others fiction. That you are bloodthirsty, that you kill without reason, that you trust no one, that you plan to declare your own children as successors and make the empire hereditary. None of it is your doing, but all of it works. You begin losing the loyalty of men who once would have died for you. Their faces stiffen when you enter. Their eyes flicker with calculation, not reverence. One night, Christophe refuses your direct order to send troops south. He says the men are needed for northern repairs. You know better. He's digging in, preparing. Still, you don't move against him. Not yet, because you need to be sure. And because war among your own people is the last thing you ever wanted. But you write a letter that night, sealed, hidden. You list names, the ones you trust, the ones you don't. The ones who will have to die if this empire is to survive. You sign it. Jacques Fass, Emperor of the only free people on earth. You lean back in your chair, the candle flickering low, and you whisper to the silence, I didn't kill the French to be killed by friends. But by now, you know the truth. You may have won the revolution. But peace? Peace is killing you more slowly than the war ever did. Betrayal on the road to Port-au-Prince. The air feels wrong the moment you leave the palace. You're headed to Port-au-Prince, an inspection, a formality, a show of strength in the South. That's what they think. But you're not just riding for pageantry. You're riding to draw something out. Or someone. The knife behind the curtain. The traitor in the coat of a friend. You keep the escort light. Just a few guards, trusted men. You want speed. But more than that, you want bait. You want them to believe you're vulnerable. And if they come for you, let them try. The morning is hot, the sky a sheet of unbroken blue. As you ride along the coastal road, you watch the sea glitter to your left. To your right, the hills are quiet, too quiet. The trees don't move, no birds call, just the sound of hooves and the breathing of your horse. Then, you see them. A group of men waiting near a bend in the road, uniformed, familiar faces. Officers under Pétion's command. You slow your horse, your guards tense, you hold up a hand. Let it play out. One of the men steps forward, Jean-Pierre Richard, a commander you promoted yourself, back during the days of fire and victory. You remember pulling him from the mud during the siege of Jacmel, handing him a sword and saying, "Earn your name." Now he meets your gaze without fear. "Majesty," he says, bowing stiffly. "General Pétion sends his regrets. He could not meet you in the city. He sends us in his place." You say nothing, just nod. Then, movement. Behind the tree line, a glint of metal. Too late. Shots explode from the brush. One of your guards falls without a sound. Another shouts, firing blindly. Your horse rears and you're thrown, back slamming against the hard-packed road, air punched from your lungs. They come fast. 10, maybe 12 of them. Some in uniform, some in plain clothes. No banners, no insignia. Just bullets and silence. You roll behind your horse, draw your pistol, and fire. One goes down. Another hesitates, and you throw your saber like a spear, burying it deep into his chest. But there are too many. Your guards fight valiantly, but they're outnumbered. One by one, they fall. You're shot once, left shoulder, then again, lower back. You stagger to your feet, blood soaking your coat, and still, you don't fall. You lock eyes with Richard. "You're a coward," you growl. "At least the French looked me in the face." He says nothing, just raises his pistol. You hear the shot. Then, nothing. Your body is dragged from the road, stripped, dumped into a shallow ditch near Pont Rouge. The empire you bled to build does not even offer you a coffin. No ceremony, no final command, no farewell. Your killers scatter, each with their story. Pétion denies knowledge. Christophe sends a letter of grief. The official account calls it an ambush, an accident. History will know better. You, the flame of Haiti, the wrath of the enslaved, are gone, but not forgotten. Because news spreads quickly. In the towns and villages you once rode through, people begin to weep. Some curse your name, others light candles and whisper prayers. But most, they remember. They remember what it felt like to be free because of you, to walk unchained. To see a man who once bled in the fields stand tall in golden robes and declare that they, the once forgotten, were worthy of their own empire. They will bury your bones, quietly, quickly, but they will carry your memory like a loaded gun. Even in death, you terrify your enemies. And even in death, you remain what you always were. The last breath of vengeance from a world that refused to kneel. A nation without its sword. The aftermath of an assassination. You are gone, but your absence is louder than your voice ever was. In the days following your assassination, the empire you built begins to shake. There's no thunder, no instant collapse, just a subtle tilting like a great tree starting to lean, its roots severed beneath the soil. No one claims responsibility. Pétion offers condolences, face carved in sorrow, hands clean. He blames bandits. Christophe calls for mourning and national unity, all while reinforcing the northern forts. Your generals stand stunned. The ones who once followed you without question suddenly look around and ask, "What now?" There is no heir, no son crowned, no trusted successor anointed, because you weren't building a dynasty. You were building fire, and fire doesn't pass gently. The power vacuum opens wide and fast. Within weeks, Haiti fractures, not into chaos, but into rivals. Henri Christophe wastes no time. He declares control over the north, establishing a kingdom, his own monarchy. He names himself King Henry I, complete with crown, court, and royal titles. Where you were raw steel, Christophe tries for polish. Where you ruled through fear and fire, he rules with protocol and pride. In the south, Pétion seizes Port-au-Prince and declares a republic. He uses words like democracy and reform, but everyone knows he's consolidating just like the others, just with better manners. He becomes president, then later makes it a presidency for life. The mulatto elite back him. The merchants adore him. The revolutionaries? They don't speak his name without side glances. What was once a united Haiti, hard won through blood, fire, and your indomitable will, is now two nations staring at each other across a broken heart. And yet, your legacy won't go quietly. In the countryside, in villages scorched and reborn by your hand, old women teach children your name before they teach them the alphabet. They say, "Dessalines was the one who made us free." In the mountains, maroon communities whisper your story as scripture. Young rebels write your words on the walls at night, liberty or death. And in the north, Christophe, despite his ambitions, keeps your memory alive. He builds statues in your honor, declares you the founding father, tries to bind your legend to his rule. Pétion, however, does the opposite. He allows your name to fade. He promotes Toussaint as the gentler father of the nation. He buries your proclamations, censors your declarations, silences your rage in the history books. He needs order, not thunder. Still, your ghost lingers. In 1806, just months after your death, a riot erupts in Cap Haitien. A crowd gathers, shouting your name. They tear down a French flag flown by mistake over a government office. Someone raises a black banner in its place. No emblem, no words, just black, like the one you once flew. The army disperses them. But the message is clear. You may be dead, but what you represented, that never dies. Because there's something unkillable about the idea of a man rising from the pit of slavery, defying the world's greatest empire, and winning. About an ex-slave donning an emperor's robes, not in mockery, but in mastery. About a people who said no more and meant it. Your killers thought they could silence that. They were wrong. Years pass, then decades. Haiti remains split, then reunified, then split again in spirit. New leaders rise. Most fail. A few try to emulate your strength. Fewer still understand it. But your name survives, even when written in silence. And later, far later, it will be resurrected. Not by emperors, but by the people. The resurrection of Dessalines. Buried name, living legend. Time, like a tide, tries to wash you away. Years stretch into decades, and the Haitian elites try to reshape the revolution to fit their image. You're too raw, too relentless, too honest. Toussaint becomes the safe symbol, enlightened, restrained, diplomatic. The colonized mind prefers a father who speaks French. You're the blade. You're the part of the revolution they're afraid to teach. In the schools of Port-au-Prince, students are told of Toussaint's wisdom and Christophe's discipline. But your name? Often reduced to a footnote. If it's spoken, it's wrapped in hesitation. He was a great general, they say, then lower their voices. But also brutal. But they can't erase the streets. They can't stop the grandmothers in the hills who still tell your story at dusk, as fires crackle and barefoot children gather wide-eyed. They say Jean-Jacques Dessalines did not free us politely. He broke the chains with fire and fear, so they would never return. And in the north, the descendants of the soldiers you fed, clothed, and bled beside, they remember. Not with textbooks, but with memory. Living, breathing history passed through sweat and song. You become a kind of myth, not less real, but more powerful. And across the Atlantic, black thinkers, rebels, and dreamers begin whispering your name. In South America, revolutionaries studying Bolivar ask, what if we fought like Dessalines? In the American South, enslaved men pass your name in hushed tones, a story too dangerous to speak aloud near their masters. In Jamaica, Trinidad, Cuba, your legacy arrives not by ship, but by heartbeat. You become the one who finished what others started. The 20th century brings a wave of black consciousness, and with it, your memory surges back like thunder rolling through a long-dead valley. Writers, activists, and leaders, W.E.B. Du Bois, C.L.R. James, Frantz Fanon, begin to reframe you. Not as a butcher, but as the necessary consequence of a brutal world. Because they see what you saw, that no empire yields without blood, that peace without justice is just surrender in slow motion. Your name returns to Haiti's streets in defiance. Monuments rise, towns are renamed. October 17, the day of your assassination, becomes Dessalines' Day, a national holiday. But still, your memory remains controversial. Some Haitian presidents stand before your statue and offer speeches. Others avoid it. They fear what it represents, not the man, but the idea that justice might mean fire, that peace might require teeth, that black freedom doesn't need permission. And every time Haiti is betrayed by corrupt leaders, by foreign invasions, by stolen elections, your name reemerges in chants, in graffiti, in protests. Dessalines, c'est la solution. Dessalines is the solution. And you are, even if only in spirit, because you remind the people of their power, of what they've endured, of what they still could become. You weren't perfect. You knew that. You ruled hard. You punished disloyalty. You killed when you thought the nation's survival demanded it. And maybe, just maybe, you let your fear of chains harden into cruelty. But you never knelt. Never asked for forgiveness for fighting back. You lived the revolution. And you died so it wouldn't. That alone sets you apart. That alone makes you immortal. In downtown Port-au-Prince today, a statue of you stands tall, saber in one hand, national flag in the other, face carved in defiance. Every schoolchild in Haiti walks past it at least once in their life. Some stare, some rush by, some salute, and every once in a while, one of them stops and feels something stir, something old, something fierce. They might not know it yet, but they are hearing your call. The fire beyond borders, Dessalines and the Black diaspora. You didn't live to see it, but you lit fires far beyond the shores of Haiti. Long after your death, your legacy travels like contraband, smuggled in the minds of freedom fighters, packed into books banned by frightened colonizers, chanted in dialects across islands and continents where chains still rattle. Across the Caribbean, whispers of Haiti spread like prophecy. In Barbados and St. Lucia, enslaved men dream of another Dessalines. In Trinidad, women tell their children that there was once a black emperor who burned the slave world down and built his own. You didn't just win a war. You shattered the myth of white invincibility. Haiti became a symbol, and you, the embodiment of its fearlessness. In 1816, Simon Bolivar arrives in Haiti, broken and desperate. President Alexandre Pétion gives him weapons, ships, and men, but only under one condition, that Bolivar free the enslaved in any land he liberates. Pétion gives the order, but it is your ghost Bolivar carries into battle. Years later, enslaved Africans in Virginia, Georgia, and Louisiana pass stories about Saint-Domingue in whispers. Not books, not sermons, just memory tattooed into the air. In 1831, Nat Turner leads a revolt in the U.S. South, and some historians say your story reached him. They say your name moved across oceans, into the marrow of men who'd never seen your face, but knew exactly what it meant. Freedom, without compromise. As the centuries turn, your image shifts again. No longer the bloody general, no longer just a Haitian ruler. Now you become a signal. To black nationalists in Harlem, you're the one who proved Africa didn't need to beg. To Pan-Africanists like Marcus Garvey, you are the iron in the dream. To revolutionaries in Angola, Ghana, South Africa, you are proof that empires bleed when struck hard enough. In 1960s America, as the civil rights movement begins to split, some toward peaceful protest, others toward militancy, your name finds new breath. The Black Panthers print your portrait. Radical poets quote your decrees. Students in Oakland and Harlem paint your face on walls beside Malcolm X. Because while Toussaint was the philosopher, you were the fist. And sometimes, fists are what history needs. Your words, rewritten and reimagined, appear in zines, murals, speeches. We must live free or die. We are black, all black, and we stand as one. It echoes through time, even in places you never touched. In 1990, Nelson Mandela walks free from prison. He names Haiti as the first black republic to inspire him. And though he doesn't say your name, those who know the fire know where it began. Because the first man to not only rebel, but win, was you. You, Jean-Jacques Dessalines. You, the emperor they feared. You, the sword they buried but never silenced. And today, when black nations rise to demand justice, when the youth march in Kingston, in Accra, in Atlanta, they might not say it, but you walk among them. They wear your defiance. They carry your rage. They inherit your burden and your blueprint. And across the internet, across borders drawn by colonial ink, young people stumble upon your name and pause. They say, why didn't I learn about this man before? Because they weren't meant to. You were meant to be forgotten, but you never will be. Haunted soil, Haiti struggles to keep its soul. Your story lit the fire, but the fire has struggled to stay alive. Haiti, the land you bled for, burned for, crowned yourself for, has not known peace for long. Not in your lifetime. Not after. The soil holds memory like a bruise, and your name, carved in stone and sung in resistance, still divides and ignites. After your assassination, Haiti fractured and never fully healed. 2 republics, then 1. Then a string of governments more fragile than glass. Foreign powers hovered like vultures. France, stung by your victory, demanded compensation for their lost slaves. And in a move that defies all justice, Haiti paid it. Your nation, the only one born from a successful slave revolt, was forced to buy its freedom with generations of poverty. You would have spat blood before signing that deal. But they signed it anyway. The debt crippled Haiti. It haunted every budget, strangled every dream. Roads went unpaved, schools decayed, hospitals crumbled, leaders were toppled, some by their people, many by outsiders. And always, always, the world watched and judged and whispered, why can't Haiti get it together? They never mentioned the chains France left behind. The economic sabotage. The U.S. Marines landing in 1915, occupying the island for 2 decades. The dictators they backed, the resources stripped, the sovereignty mocked. Your revolution terrified them, so they made sure it would never happen again, anywhere. And yet Haiti survives. Battered, yes, but unbroken. From peasant farmers in Artibonite to school teachers in Cap-Haïtien, your people keep marching. Sometimes under the flag you raised, sometimes under banners of protest, always with your name beneath their breath. In 2004, on the 200th anniversary of independence, Haiti should have celebrated you with thunder. But the streets boiled in unrest. Foreign troops arrived again, under the blue helmets of peacekeepers, and your bicentennial was marked by uncertainty, not glory. Still, they remembered you. They painted your name across protest signs. They shouted, "Dessalines lives," as tear gas clouded the air. Because even in despair, they see you not as a myth, but as a compass. They know you didn't die quietly. They know you were betrayed, not by enemies, but by brothers in fine coats and soft shoes. And so, every time corruption swells, every time foreign hands manipulate elections, every time a leader kneels to global pressure, your people ask, what would Dessalines do? Not as nostalgia, as threat. Today, Haiti's youth know more of you than their parents did. They discover you on social media, in underground lectures, in music that fuses protest and pride. Your face, stern, regal, furious, returns to murals in Port-au-Prince and on T-shirts worn during marches. And the message beneath is always the same. We were free once. We can be free again. Because even if Haiti has stumbled, the idea of Haiti, that black people can rule themselves, defend themselves, define themselves, that idea never died. That idea is you. And though the land is cracked, the crops thin, and the hope tired, the memory of the man who said, liberty or death, still breathes in the dust, still walks the hills, still waits. For someone to pick up the sword again, not in bloodlust, but in defense, not in hate, but in honor. And the soil knows, because when it rains in Haiti, the water runs red through old canals, not from blood, from iron-rich earth. But still, it feels like a warning or a promise. The unkillable flame, why Dessalines still matters. You are more than memory now. You are warning, weapon, and mirror. Your revolution didn't just win freedom. It exposed something the world still doesn't want to admit, that enslaved people could not only rise up, but rule. That they could form nations, draft constitutions, command armies, wear crowns not stolen from others, but forged in fire. And so the world buried you. Not just your body, but your image. You were too dangerous to teach, too direct to romanticize, too soft they could tame. You were a lesson in the cost of real liberation, a warning that the oppressed do not always ask politely. But that very danger, that's why you matter now more than ever. Because the world still believes in polite chains, still applauds half-freedoms, still hands out slogans instead of sovereignty. And everywhere the oppressed push too hard, speak too loud, refuse to wait, your name stirs beneath the headlines. When protesters take to the streets with fire in their eyes, they are speaking your language. When colonized people demand reparations instead of apologies, they echo your rage. When children born in the margins raise their fists and say, "We will not bow," they are continuing your story. You taught the world something it hasn't forgotten, but refuses to admit, that real freedom never asks permission. You knew that from the moment your back was whipped in the sugar fields. You knew it when you marched through enemy fire, barefoot and bullet-ridden, and still took the fort. You knew it when you stood before the people and declared yourself emperor, not for vanity, but for vengeance against a world that had written you off as property. And today, even as statues crack and textbooks falter, that truth survives, because you proved that revolution is not a myth, it's muscle. It's memory, it's motion, it's yours. And Haiti, bruised but breathing, still carries that torch. The nation you birthed still sings your name, sometimes in pain, sometimes in pride, always in defiance. They walk streets named after you. They honor your death, not just with wreaths, but with warning. Because every Haitian knows, if ever the chains threaten to return, so will Dessalines. Not in body, but in spirit. In the strike of a machete on stone. In the beat of a drum deep in the hills, in the roar of a mother saying, "My children will never kneel." And maybe that's what immortality really is. Not statues, not silence, but memory that bites, memory that burns, memory that refuses to die, just like you. Cool down 300 words. So, now you've heard it. The story of Jean-Jacques Dessalines, the ex-slave, the general, the emperor, the executioner, the liberator. Some call him cruel, others call him a hero. The truth? He was both and more. Because freedom, real freedom, is not neat. It doesn't come with clean hands and tidy endings. It comes with scars, with sacrifice, with fury. And Dessalines never shied away from any of it. He didn't want statues. He wanted safety for his people. He didn't want peace. He wanted justice. He wasn't trying to be liked. He was trying to break the back of a world that had no place for men like him until he made one. And though his empire didn't last, his message did. That black people could not only resist empire, but build beyond it. That revolution wasn't just possible, it was inevitable. That vengeance can sometimes be the first breath of dignity. So what now? You've heard the story, felt the weight of it. Ask yourself, what does freedom mean to you? What are you willing to risk for it? And when the moment comes, will you hesitate, or will you remember the man who didn't? Thanks for listening to this story. If it moved you, if it taught you something new, then do me a favor. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep the fire alive. Finish the script. Enjoy listening, and subscribe to the channel for the next video.